Hi guys, it's me, Arden Lee, and in today's video, I'm gonna go ahead and do a vulnerable share, and I'm gonna talk about what I'm learning from one of the issues and patterns that I'm processing right now in my own personal growth. And in that, I want to talk about the journey from trauma to leadership and what it's going to look like managing our triggers. When we are someone who is a traumatized person, who is still working through that trauma, it's really understandable that we're going to be coming from a lot of wounding, and we're going to need a lot of space to heal and feel safe. And I'm also going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that the act of healing our trauma essentially renders us a leader at the end of that journey, no matter what path we choose. Even if we don't choose to become a course creator, which is a pretty common thing now, right? A lot of people who are in the online self-improvement and personal growth space will go through whatever hero's journey they are going through, and then when they get to the other side of it, they'll say, oh, I solved this problem for myself, now I can solve this problem for other people, and I'm going to create a course around it. And that's a wonderful thing, especially for people who really have been on that journey and done that work and really understand it in their bodies, because those are absolutely the kind of course creators that we need. Not everyone chooses to go that route, and that's also great, but no matter what, if you're someone who has come to that place of inner peace and created that bandwidth to really go on your soul mission, whatever that ends up being, I'm going to go ahead and say that you're a leader whether you like it or not. You don't have to take on any more responsibility than feels right to you. But you are a way shower, just by virtue of the fact that you led by example in solving your own issues with trauma, undoing your unhealthy patterning, and shining as an example for the world. So there's a lot of kinds of behavior that when you're working on your trauma are completely natural to come up for you, and are phases of messiness that are not only completely understandable for you to go through, but oftentimes even necessary. And then all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're a leader, and those ways of being aren't going to work anymore. Something that I shared recently with someone else who is also a course creator, who seems pretty embodied in her own knowledge of what she's teaching. We had a discussion in her own Facebook group not too long ago about how it's a really fine line between someone who is antagonistically, between discerning, right? But discerning between someone who is antagonistically crossing or violating your boundaries in an online space especially, versus someone who is just projecting their own drama or their own unhealed wounds onto you and your process in your own space. And it's real vulnerable, you guys, because being on this journey means that one day you start down this road and you're a person with trauma who is highly sensitive, who is defending her own space and rigidly setting her boundaries in order to give herself that shield of protection against negative outside influences that she may still be attracting from, or not attracting, still be in alignment with, right? In that unhealed space that tends to somehow be in alignment with more people who are criticizing or attacking, right? And then all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're a leader, and what used to be you defending your space against people who are violating your boundaries, all of a sudden you realize is you lashing out at someone who's at the start of their journey who maybe just didn't know the correct language to use when approaching you. And I've been thinking more and more about that lately, because it's been just over a year since I launched the Repatterning Project. And I'm really seeing the results of how it's going, which have been astounding. As I said when I first created this course, people requested that I put a container together to teach what I had learned on my own personal growth journey. And I said yes to that because I felt like I could do it, and it felt like there was demand for it. And honestly, I was just happy at the end that nobody asked for their money back. Which is so funny, right? It's so ironic how we undervalue the gifts that are actually closest to us because we're the ones who take them for granted, right? So when it came through, and when it actually started really helping people change and improve their lives on a core level, and I started seeing the transformations, even 6 to 12 months after the course ended, and people's lives are all of a sudden in this much different place, and they're able to come back and say, wow, that really, really helped. I integrated all the information, and now I'm in this completely different space. I realized it was an invitation for me to step up into a greater position of leadership and treat this, not only this course and this material, but treat my position as facilitator as the important and sacred thing it is. And a lot of my trauma came in particular from being attacked online, right? For those of you who don't know the story, the short version is when I was working as a pro-dom, professional dominatrix in my early 20s in New York City, I was doxxed. I was essentially, I had a whole bunch of people attacking me online, actively wishing me harm, and providing personal information about me, hoping that other people would find me and harm me. And naturally, that produced some defensiveness. So sometimes when someone would say something online, I would have this confirmation bias because that trauma was so strong for me and so frankly harrowing and terrifying. I would have this sort of confirmation bias where I assumed that someone disagreeing with me was an attack on me. And sometimes I like to think that I've gotten a lot better at that over the years, and I certainly have. I'm able to respond from a place of more calm. But even when I go into something with the energy of this person is disagreeing with me and therefore I have to set them straight, even if I'm setting them straight in a manner that's kind or logical or factual and completely devoid of any personal attacks, which I've really tried to. I feel like I've gotten to a place where I'm pretty good at that energy. I'm pretty good at disagreeing with someone without getting so triggered that I lash out and make it personal. But the next level that I'm calling myself into is to realize that if someone writes something that I interpret as a disagreement, if I'm going to hold this position of leadership as the sacred thing that it is, then yeah, sure, in some cases, where someone is refusing to acknowledge their privilege, for example, or to acknowledge harm, right? If someone is trying to bypass things, then yes, that's important for me to hold to that standard and not allow harmful beliefs to be perpetrated on my page, sure. However, if someone's just incorrect about something or has another way of phrasing something, or this is a tough one. If I make a personal share and they start giving their hot take on it, which I didn't ask for, that feels invasive to me. But maybe they're just trying to give their hot take because they relate, or maybe in their own way they're trying to be helpful or add to the discussion. And it's really time for me to it's time for me to let go of this defensiveness, because I'm not being attacked anymore. Or who knows? I mean, maybe I am, but maybe I would be, right? Um, but my complex PTSD skewing, which is not just from the trauma I faced in my 20s. I don't remember exactly where it's from. It's probably from my relationship with my father. But I do remember this going back to as young as 10 or 11 years old, where I felt a defensiveness, like I had to prove myself. Like anyone who was responding to me in some way was naturally going to be disagreeing with me, and therefore I had to put my guard up and be on the offense about my own point in order to be heard. And it's just a place of immaturity that I don't want to be in anymore. And yeah, so I'm calling myself out about that in this video. And I'm doing that publicly for two reasons. One, because it's going to make it easier for me to actually step into and hold myself accountable by articulating it and being witnessed in it and sharing that with all of you. And two, because for you guys who are also choosing to go on this journey, you're going to get to this point too. It's just really freaking trippy, man. Like I said, one night you go to bed, this traumatized individual who has to defend all her boundaries during her personal growth journey, and the next morning you wake up and you're a leader and you're mistakenly acting defensively towards someone who's just trying to learn from you. So I'm calling myself into more compassion. I'm inviting myself into a world where I don't need this defensiveness anymore. I'll probably do another separate video about this one because this one is already 12 minutes. But a theme that's been coming up for me a lot lately is dropping the need to prove myself. And with that, the need to over-explain things. Over-explaining can be a gift that I have because I'm very good at breaking down the mechanics of things. But sometimes I don't need it so much. Sometimes I can invite myself into stillness, into quiet, into being rather than explaining. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in the meantime, this is something that I want to put a name to so that not only I become more cognizant of it in the moment, but also so that I can share it with you, because if you do continue on this journey and you do reach that other side, there will be a point where no matter what, you will be in the embodiment of a leader precisely because you did your own work. You could be working, I don't know, you could be a you could be a dress designer, you could be, a marine biologist, whatever your calling is. You don't have to be a course creator. You'll be a leader just by your embodiment of your own inner peace and harmony. And there will come that time where you drop your need for defensiveness because you realize you've actually created your own safety. And that's kind of the point of this healing journey, right? What are we doing this for if we're going to go around feeling defensive the whole time? Right? So I'm going to work on dropping that for myself. And I invite you also to see where that shows up for you, depending on where you're at in your own personal journey. And certainly to anticipate that point where the people who talk shit or disagree or whatever just don't need to be something that you give your energy to. Or that if you do give your energy there, you can bring that energy from a place of compassion, from your higher self, recognizing the wounding in that person that's causing them to act unconsciously or say things out of turn or just not know the right language to use around you. We can come at that interaction from a place of compassionate leadership rather than from a need to defend ourselves. So that's what I'm holding myself to. Thank you guys for witnessing me. Thank you for listening. And yeah, it's cool. I got a place where I can do a little better. So I'm going to work on that. Thank you guys, and come join me in the repatterning parlor and hold me accountable. Link is in the description box. We'd love to see you there to get more support and resources just like this video. So thank you guys, and I'll see you there.